There we go. I think we're good now. Great. Well, that was exciting watching everyone come in. A lot of familiar faces and clients, candidates, and friends who have logged in. And I want to thank you and welcome to the Board Leadership Forum, where we want to talk about boards and profitability. We really want to talk about generating revenue, generating profits, generating dividends. And I want to pay special thanks to our partner, Hawkamah, the Institute of Governance, and the gold standard for board practices, board best practices across the region and globally. I'm your host, Shane Phillips from the Phillips Group. Our company is a family business as well that was founded in 1984 in Canada, and we have been placing board members and CEOs since 1984, so almost 40 years. If you will. So we have a great lineup today. Our session is going to be from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. And our closer is the amazing story, one of my favorite, the Invest story, which has delivered double or triple-digit growth almost every single year. So we have Sanjay Quatra talking there. And our middle session is also a firecracker. We have V. Shankar, CEO and co-founder of Gateway Partners, who is really going to give us some good investment insights as well. He's leading a 14 billion AUMs in assets under management investment company. And that his presentation will be complemented by Mr. Ramzi Kanan, who's currently the chairman of UBS Bank in Saudi Arabia. We're all interested to know what's happening in Saudi. And Anis Sultan, who's a board member with WJ Towell, the oldest distribution relationships for Unilever and Nestle in the world, spanning over 150 years. And our opening session, the one we're just about to do now, is featuring one of our favorite homegrown success stories, Dubai success stories. A man who has been known for putting his competition to sleep and gives his customers a dreamy experience every time they come into his office. He's leading a family business that was forged in the last century. He succeeded his father as MD and CEO in 1999 and now has grown the business to be a market leader in the GCC, underscored by presence in 23 additional countries. And he's also proudly promoted and spearheaded the manufacturing sector in UAE, proudly promotes the trademark made in UAE. He holds a Bachelor of Science from University of Missouri, Kansas, and an MBA from the American University in Dubai. Please welcome Mr. Hassan Al-Hazeem.
Thank you, Shane. It's so kind of you. It's an honor to join the forum.
Thank you. Yeah, it's exciting to have you here, and I look forward to talking about your business, which is, sorry, I didn't think I mentioned it there in the lead up in the suspense. He's leading Intercoil, which manufactures, for example, if you ever slip in a Jumeirah hotel, Jumeirah Beach Hotel or any of the hotels, his mattresses are the mattresses you're sleeping on. So really a market leader in his sector. Our second speaker is a man some called the godfather of governance. He's championed the evolution and development of corporate governance across the Gulf, and he himself has chaired several boards, such as executive chairman of Egypt Post, deputy executive director of Egyptian Banking Institute, executive director of the Egyptian Institute of Directors, and Institute of Corporate Governance in Egypt and the Arab region, board member of Egyptian Resorts Company, board member of Sal Hashish, Egypt Reinsurance, Miser Life Insurance, Suez Canal for Technology, Thebes International, Miser Connect Cement, sorry, I think I destroyed the name of that one, and many more board positions. So he's a bona fide, veritable board member and also expert in corporate governance. And is advising and providing his expertise to the biggest boards across the Gulf. Please welcome Dr. Ashraf Gamal.
Thank you so much, Shane. Thank you, everyone. I hope this will be a very interactive session and that we'll be discussing together, and we will be happy to answer any questions or receive your comments and respond to it. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
And our third speaker is a man who's really been part of the fabric of UAE's digital growth and a lot of the regulations, policies, systems that are being put across. He's a member of the board of the UAE Ministry of Climate Change and Environment. He's a board member with the Middle East Energy. He's a board member with MENA Power Projects. And he's a board member with the MIT Sloan CIO Council. And he's also a board member for one of the most famous groups here in Dubai, a pillar of the business community. He's a board member with Al-Khaleej Group and an advisor to the chairman of the group. For those of you, I don't know how anyone wouldn't know Al-Khaleej Group, but just in case, they're co-founders of several very well entities that we use every day, such as Etisalat, and founder of the first local bank, Emirates NBD, as well as Diwa. We get the bill every month, so we have to know that one. Siwa, and Commercial Bank of Dubai, Dubai Insurance, and Pepsi in the country. His prior life, before becoming a board member, mover, and shaker that he is, he was a banker. But we won't hold that against him. Please welcome Mr. Maher Al-Kabi to the panel. Maher, I think you're a lot of people. Yeah, so feel free to record this if you'd like.
Yes.
There we go.
No,
Here he
thank
is.
you very much. Yes, now I'm okay, able to speak. Thank you very much, Shane. Lovely to be here. Let's look for a good panel, inshallah.
Thank you. So let's just start with Mr. Hassan Al-Hazeem. The Intercoil story. Can you tell us a little bit about how it started, where it's gone, and where it's going now? Oh, you're muted. Technology is great when it works. I think we'll get there, but
Good?
there we go.
Okay. So the company was founded in Dubai in 1974. The company is as old as I am, as a first polyethylene foam manufacturing company in the UAE, and then diversified into furniture and mattresses and bedroom furniture. So we have 3 manufacturing units, 2 in the UAE, 1 in Dubai, 1 in Ras Al Khaimah, and we have a factory in Saudi Arabia. So we manufacture foam mattresses, bedroom furniture, vertically integrated. We have our own brand, which is Intercoil, and I'm proud that it's a homegrown brand. And then we have 2 American brands, Simmons and Therapeutic, and we are the licensee for these brands in the region. Sometimes people think that Intercoil is an international brand, and we're the licensee of that brand, and that makes me proud that we have built the brand of Intercoil to the extent that it's perceived as an international brand. We have B2B and B2C. Our B2B business is mainly to furniture retailers, so we supply companies like Home Center, Marina, Crate and Barrel, those companies, and then we supply hotels and other specialty stores. So as you mentioned earlier, Jumeirah Group, Four Seasons, and other renowned brands in the hospitality industry. I've been managing the business since 1999, so it's almost 25 years. After I graduated, I did my MBA while I was working in Commercial Bank of Dubai. So it was 4 years I was in banking, and then joined the family business.
Great. Were you guys were at you guys weren't at Commercial Bank at Dubai at the same time? You and Maher, were you?
I'm not sure. I think I'm older than Maher. I'm not. I was from 95 to 99.
No, I was not in Commercial Bank of Dubai. I was at Citibank for about 15 years, and then I moved to Dubai Bank, then Emirates NBD.
Oh, wow. Okay. So we didn't cross paths, unfortunately.
So I worked for 28 years in the banking, so I'm not sure how old are you, but I'm actually in 50s.
I'm turning 50 in a few months.
Okay.
Great. So Hassan, you took over in 99, or I think you were after, and I guess that was a challenging moment because there was, I guess you have a huge family, right?
Yeah, so I think I'm going to share my experience. I'm very open to sharing experiences. I'm a member of EO Entrepreneurs Organization. I was before the YPO. I was, on global boards of EO and YPO. So I'm very open-minded about sharing experiences. In our case, my father was very hands-on in the business till the day he passed away. He had 16 sons and daughters and 3 branches. So my father had 3 wives, and so you can say there were 3 groups. two groups were based in Kuwait, where I'm originally from, and one group we are the Dubai branch, you can say. So the complication is, prior to my father passing away, there wasn't a formal governance process. I mean, it was, you know, the older brothers were involved in the business. I joined the family business like only a year and a half or so before he passed away, but there wasn't a formal, you know, board of directors with non-executive board members or non-executive shareholders. So, you know, it was mainly the older sons and him. So at the time he passed away, we decided to form a board which represents all the shareholders, and which was basically the five sons and one of the brother-in-laws, because my sister at that time has given him power of attorney. So that was the start of governance, you can say, you know, after my father passed away, which was mainly a board that involved members who were already actively managing the businesses, some of the companies we own, whether in Kuwait or Saudi or the UAE. And one of my brothers, for example, was not involved in the business. So he is a board member, but not in any way involved in the business. And then we had a brother-in-law who was representing his wife, who's one of the shareholders. That worked for some time, I think for 7 years, 7 or 8 years. And during this period, it evolved in terms of accountability and governance. There were teams in charge of real estate, a team in charge of manufacturing, like two of the board members, and so on and so forth. But in 7 years, it was obvious that there was no alignment in terms of expectations, nor in terms of performance. So some of the members were performing better than the others. So therefore, the companies that were performing better, it didn't seem to be a fair structure, because some of the members had better profitability, and therefore, when you bring in the profits to the pool for everybody, there was that kind of sense of unfairness. And in any case, since there was also a big gap in terms of generational gap, I'm the youngest in the family, and my oldest brother is like 25 years older than I. There is a gap in terms of expectations, in terms of vision, and in terms of where we want the group to go. And therefore, that was the start of a mutual agreement between us to separate, to swap shares and separate the estate according to the three groups. So the governance that we have formed, or the board that we have formed post my father passed away, was temporary or for a certain period successful. But eventually we found that the best way going forward is to maintain the family relationship, but separate as business partners and split the assets amongst us based on the region, geography, whatever, who was managing what, and so on and so forth. So this was the first phase of my experience in terms of a family business with a board. I can go to the next phase, but I'll first ask you, Shane, if you have any questions on.
I think this is where Dr. Ashraf comes in. I guess this is where everything is going well, but then when the main person at the driving seat is gone, then this is where the corporate governance gets its mettle tested. Or Dr. Ashraf, what's your experience in this type of moment?
Well, yeah, thank you so much. Actually, this is really something that we have seen a lot, and the story that Mr. Hassan mentioned now is happier than other stories that we have heard and have seen in different families. Now, one of the issues which is very common is simply that when the patriarch established the company, he would think that I can manage it with my sons and daughters and everything. And he might think that everything is under control, and I have a system and everyone is doing something different, so things are stable. What a lot of people don't realize is simply that this is a situation where the founder is alive, because, you know, he is usually in control and people respect him. And we are a very respectful culture in nature. So we are not really, we don't like other cultures challenge our fathers or something. We will never do that. So we always respect. But once he is absent, he is not around, then you start to have lots of issues happening. And therefore, the whole idea of having, you know, the family members as the shareholders, as the board of directors is very problematic, because what you have is, number one, you lose lines of good governance. For example, like you know, usually you have the shareholders who elect people who have experience as board members, and they hold them accountable for whatever happens. And then you have management that you can hold accountable as well. But once you have the family, they are in the three positions. They are the shareholders, the board, as well as the management. That's where you have lots of issues happening. And we really always advise people to differentiate between having good governance for the companies. So sometimes you do have a company's good governance, but then good governance for the family as well. And this is the more mature stage. So we always say that, you know, when things are good, when the founder is alive, or at least maybe the second generation after him is alive, that's where they should come together and agree on the system for the companies. So as Hassan say, we might agree that, you know what, we swap shares and every part of the family will own something, or we say, let's have professional governance in which we as family agree on, you know, we are shareholders and we choose professional people to be on the board. Maybe one of us will be, or two of us will be there as well, and then how to select the management. That's all these decisions. They have to be made as early as possible. The later you wait for these decisions to happen, the more problems you will face. Because at the beginning, it was only the father. And then you start to have the three wives and their children. And then you start to have lots of grandsons. You have like 45 people. And there is no way you can get agreement. So that's why we say, please think about these things before they do happen to you. And I have something which I say to lots of family founders who say, you know, everything is under control. I always say, you know what? It is like death. You think that somebody else will die, but not me. So you think that all the problems that family businesses are facing will not happen in your family business. It will. I mean, it's a matter of time. So the key thing is, and it's really quite important, communication and talking as a family is quite important to agree together on a system. That system, whatever it is, but we have to agree on it. And that has to be reflected after this into, you know, agreements and policies which are binding for people, because non-binding gentleman agreement do not work in reality. You start to go to court, and we have seen this a lot in the region. I don't want to take too long out of the time now, but at this stage, I think what Mr. Hassan told is a very happy story as compared to other families, where they agreed that we keep the family together by separating the ownership, which is excellent. So every branch of the family took ownership. So again, for Mr. Hassan, for the time being, it's working. In the long term, he will have to think of the same issues, because that will happen again. So he will need to fix it, make sure that it doesn't happen to his own family after taking off with his own company in Dubai. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ashraf. So I think we've heard of the actual family member. Now we have the expert best practices. And now we have Maher Al-Kabi. Maher, you're actually an independent. You're not a member of the Al-Khaleej family. You know, what do you see your role in all of this, and what's your insight on that?
If I just continue on the story of what is happening for people to know the perspective of family offices and how generation actually transition. If you look at the global stats, first of all, the second generation, only 40% transition to 40% of the second generation. The third generation is only 16%. So you've got a loss of value of GDP of 84%. In UAE, that percentage is 10%. So it's really staggering. And now family businesses is anything between 60 to 90% of any country's GDP. So whatever, you know, Ashraf has mentioned and Hassan has mentioned, these are key things of fabric of making it happen. Now, I put in an acronym called SDGs, being an independent board member, and it starts with the selection process. So if the family businesses need to realize that, you know, and they work differently than corporates, they're definitely more emotional in what they want to do, which is a good thing to be honest with you. But then, you know, the biggest piece which is missing, what Ashraf talked about, is the governance. But before the governance, you need to understand, how do we make sure that we have the selection process of the independent board members to be there, how they are aligned with values? And the reason I mentioned this, because when I speak to a lot of people who are actually independent board members, they don't work with the same energy or the same alignment when they were working their corporate lives. And when I speak to them in confidence, they say, look, we kind of worked for 20, 30 years for a very long time. This is our retirement period. So a reverse migration from a corporate to a family business, it's a challenge by itself. So start with the selection process. Then as I said, SDG, so start with the D. Our role is to provide that sense of direction. And I always say the independent board members, they work as a sponge and as a glue. So you become a sponge when the conflict happens, you actually try to bring people together. So this is where you bring your sponge role. But at the same time, you need to make sure that you mend the relationship by working and taking the glue relationship to you, actually make sure all the family people are talking together. The independent board member has an added advantage vis-a-vis the others because their decisions are unbiased. So they know there is no interest and there's no favorism between one family member and another family member. So they're more able to listen to them. So apart from providing a sense of direction of a long term, what companies need to do, you need to make sure that we instill a governance, which is very, very important and critical in a family business. Seldomly what happens, most of the time, that a favoritism or a personal things will come into the play. So our job as an independent board member is how do we look and align this with the long-term vision that the company has today? If that is not aligned with it, then everybody comes to the same line. So you need to reduce the derailing, which happens constantly all the time. So putting that governance was very important. For us to make the constitution, we did not do it ourselves because you could download the 400-page of constitution and make it happen. So what we did, we sat with the older board members, we made them write the constitution. And we said, look, we will have a placeholder and we will not fill up everything together. We will take a baby step on what we think is correct today. And we keep on revisiting the constitution every year. It will be a second version, a third version, and so forth for you to expand on it. And the other thing which is very important is we need to drive what culture every family business wants to do. So whatever I'm saying is generally speaking, but there should be some bespoke solution from every family business to another family business because they're different. So one of the things we did is, okay, let's understand the culture. So we first of all married the culture within the whole thing. By doing what? By actually going to the senior management team meeting. We took them actually off to offsite and actually asked them, what do you think the culture should be? And then married that culture along with the corporate board, and that's what made it happen. And today now we live that culture. So we made the transformation to that things. And then we went back again, had an offsite meeting as well, which need to be done is, what is it that we want to do? What are the challenges we have? How do we diversify? And then you take it off from there. And so far you play that role. Of course, there's so many other things that we need to talk about, but this is the gist of what we need to do.
Great. Well, just one other thing. I mean, I would say with you that the family offices have the longevity and the sustainability. As an executive search consultant, I get this dialogue a lot where senior executives from multinationals will say, they cite the statistic that, hey, by the third generation, we tend to see some turbulence. But just to temper that, McKinsey's released a report that says that currently they believe, I'm not necessarily believing this, but this is what they said, that by 2027, 75% of the multinationals that are listed on the S&P will not exist anymore. And the latest statistics show that the corporations, multinationals, have an average lifespan of 18 years in the current environment. So it is becoming very difficult, very turbulent. We all have felt the fires of disruption and the changes of technology. Even the untouchable banks are feeling a little bit of heat, not totally yet, but you have Revolut and some of these other things popping up. So I think it is probably even becoming more difficult rather than easier to get that third generation across the line. And probably we need to see more family members becoming certified in best practices. And that's probably something Hawkamah can help out with. And Dr. Ashraf, maybe if we maybe encourage him a little bit, he might have a potential discount. I don't know if we'll talk about that, if we can get that going for the group members, but we'll try that our luck later. To go back to, sorry, Dr. Ashraf, did you want to say anything there or no? I thought you were leaning in. No, okay. Hassan, so Hassan, I saw you're following the North American model. that we like to subscribe to, you know, the untouchable hero leader who is both board member, chairman, CEO, MD, judge, jury, sheriff in town. I was wondering if did you do that because you feel that, you know, you're going to be able to generate more revenue, more net profit by having full control of the vision and the strategy? That's what Warren Buffett feels. That's what maybe Jamie Dimon of JP Morgan feels. Of course, our friends in Germany and England feel that that's actually illegal and you shouldn't do it. So there's obviously diversity of opinion on this. I'm sure Dr. Ashraf has an opinion as well, for sure. But can you give us a little light? What's that like, and where do you see, you know, your responsibility of the board ending on vision and management team picking up, and same with strategy? Because we place CEOs in a company, and then they're saying, well, the board's not giving me the vision. The board is saying, well, the CEO doesn't have any vision. What's your take on it as someone who is holding the realm of both worlds in the palm of his hand?
You know, frankly, I'm going to share my experience. I'm not saying my experience is the right approach or the right model. I mean, there are always lots of learning when you think back, and in hindsight, you know, if you ask me, would I have done things differently? Probably yes, I would have done things differently. But how things were at that time and why, you know, I followed this path, it just happened, you can say, or the reasons or the circumstances at that time demanded that I do that. Like before my father passed away, I joined the family business in Dubai, which is Intercoil, and I didn't have much you know, experience in manufacturing, but I became passionate about manufacturing, and you know, it was more for me kind of the challenge to build the name, build the brand, and think more long term than anything else. So my commitment to the business was to build the business on a long-term basis. I had the vision to make it a global company, to, as I said, build the brand. And I wasn't looking at the short-term results. I was looking more on what is needed to, you know, to build the company, and without support even from the head office, without, you know, any, before my father passed away, before, you know, without his support or without later the board support post him passing away. So I agree with you that being hands-on in the business gave me the ability and the authority to implement, you know, not only create the vision but also implement the vision. As I said, would I have done things differently? Probably. I mean, I probably had taken probably a step back after a few years of when the company was at a certain stage. But frankly, the main issue is that when you as an entrepreneur and as a business owner, and you represent the business and you represent the other shareholders, your expectations, your vision is usually not aligned with the expectations of the other shareholders, because their focus is on dividends and my focus is on growing the company and, you know, reinvest, especially manufacturing. You always have to keep reinvesting in the business, and, you know, lots of capex, and so that's where the challenge lied, is that how to manage between the expectations of the shareholders, which is, you know, the direct shareholders, because even after we separated ways with my half brothers and half sisters in 2008, so we had become one group, which is, you know, myself, sisters and brother, and my mother, and we did not form, and we had our own board, which represented the owners, and I was hands-on, and as a managing director, I was taking the calls, you know, and making the calls. The main challenge I've seen is that when the discussion of having non-executive or non-family members in the business on the board, that was a bit a tough discussion, because either you can say shareholders wanted to be involved themselves, or wanted, for example, let's say their sons or husbands to be involved in the business, rather than, you know, allowing professionals or people who can really add value on the board to be present. So that's one challenge. And the other, as I said, is that me being hands-on, you know, every day managing operations and having the vision put me in a different perspective than the other shareholders. Like I wasn't only a shareholder looking at profit. I was also somebody who has a vested interest in where the company is going, and the fact that I would like to set up a factory in Saudi Arabia, set up a factory maybe in Egypt. So my plans and vision did not necessarily align with the objectives and expectations of the shareholders, of the other shareholders, and that's frankly it is a challenge, and it's not easy to manage this.
Sure. I don't know. Do any of our panel members want to respond to that, or okay, sure. I think Mahler he was
Sure.
I think, quicker on the draw there. I think.
Okay, all right. I think correctly mentioned by Hassan, brother Hassan. What do family members? If the family is really large, what do they exactly want? They want a certain paycheck come to them every month. That's what they want, to be honest with you. What I tell them is, given how big is the family, and there's not one solution all. I mean, you have to make sure that you understand the family members, the need and requirement, but overall, these are the needs. If you tell them that, this definitely wealth is yours, this money is yours, it's up to you to keep it together, to make it stronger, or actually take it off now and make it weaker, and you don't have the magnificent rolling ball for that. As long as they understand that, and as long as they're getting their paycheck, they will allow you to do whatever you want to do, as long as it is for the benefit of the entire family. So we need to keep them engaged. One of the things we realized is conflict is always going to be there. And usually the conflict will come from those who are sitting as silent on the side, because they're not updated. So if you don't update them, you don't have your regular meeting with them, you don't engage them, you don't provide them information, you're definitely going to get into a bigger conflict. And there are 20, 30 reasons why people at family businesses fail and they don't transition. The very top three, at least for our region, apart from, I've managed European region, I've seen how they are, but in our region, I put them into three acronyms called RPA. First of all is retention of power. KPMG actually did a study a few years ago, and they realized that 89% of the torch holder, I call them the torch holder, the patriarch, he always want to hold the power. So 80%, they do that thing. Also the same 80%, apparently, which is 79%, recognize the requirement of actually transitioning, but they don't transition. Only 29% transition. So retention of power is always there. They don't want to transition. When they realize that they want to transition and they know that thing, they always procrastinate. That's the P. Because they always say, okay, I'm going to transition, which is the point you've mentioned, because they don't even come there till the bedtime comes, unfortunately, when they're needing to pass away. The third challenge that we face, at least in UAE and some of the other economies within GCC, is the availability of next generation. If you don't have the next generation ready because you don't really prepare them, then how will you transition the whole thing? So these are the key things that we need to keep, that how family and fabric of the family businesses work.
If I might just add to this, again, Mr. Maher talked about something which is very important, the idea of governance. Now, the idea of governance is not actually a common sense thing. It is really something that you have to plan for and you have to understand very well. So that's where what you mentioned about certification for directors and understanding what is an effective board of directors and how to really have this kind of board, what kind of different members we can have, what are the committees, how can we do a good job out of the board, and so on. And I think the key word that was mentioned here, especially in family business, is actually about power. And this is really the key issue. Now, Mr. Hassan was talking, for example, about, the idea of having a vision of expanding, going maybe open factories in different countries and doing this and doing that, maybe going to the US and opening factories in Egypt and different countries and so on. That's very nice. But that's not one-man decision. It's about a system. So this is really where governance comes in. So it doesn't become like one person who is a visionary leader who can make a decision and decides that let's go to this country or this continent, open a factory there. No, it's about having this idea of, okay, now we do have shareholders who have their own vision. Maybe their vision is we would like to stay in GCC countries. That's our vision. We would like to remain here, expand, but stay here. Or we would like to expand beyond the GCC countries and just, as long as we are making good money. And whatever it is, once you have a board of directors, professional board of directors, that's people who have different experiences and knowledge, who understand the vision of the family that actually brought them into this, and who convey this message to them, it is the board of directors who takes care of that idea of how to make it happen. So if our strategy is to grow in size and profits, regardless of the region, then they will implement it. If the family vision is simply let's keep ourselves in the GCC countries, they will do that. But then they will get a professional manager or a professional management in the company, and they will supervise them and they will set systems for them. So to make sure that things are kept on track. Now, why does it happen in lots of family businesses? It's about power. Because the idea of governance means that you as a shareholder, your power is just to set the direction, and you give them the power to the board, who will then make the other decisions, and then more power for the CEO to decide on how to implement that. Now, as mentioned, in many cases, the family or the founder would like to keep the power to himself, which means if you have a board, the board will take part of your power, right? If you have a CEO who is not part of the family, this CEO will take part of your power. And this is the problem. And once you continue to be one-man show, it is very risky. Number one, you might make a decision which is wrong, which will cost the entire family, if you like. And even if you don't, eventually you will not be able to manage the company. When that day comes, you don't have that second generation ready to take over and to be able to take the company to the next level. Now, we have seen some families who think of the companies as a way to employ our own children. So you see most of the grandchildren working there. Now, this is not really the best idea because my grandson might not be the best one to be the CFO of the company. And this will reduce value for us. If I have my sister or my niece to be the head of marketing, maybe she's not the best one for this job. So when I do that, in fact, what I do is I create a job for her, but then I reduce the wealth of the family, because this will negatively affect the success of the companies. Now, if we decide as a family, note, it's about wealth, we would like to grow, this means we get the best people available. They might be from the family, they might not be from the family. And that's was the idea of having a family constitution, saying, you know what, yes, a family member can work in the company, but giving that there are conditions that he or she have done certain studies, they have maybe worked in the private sector outside, they achieve certain things, and they are the best ones for the job. Otherwise, you start to ruin the companies by having this. And we have seen this a lot, by the way, happening. So the whole idea, again, I agree with Mr. Maher, is sometimes you have people who are on the dark, who are on the side, and they create problems because you don't have the information. And we have seen this a lot. We have seen some family members who are in the companies, so they have all the information. Others who are shareholders have no information, have no idea what's happening. They just get maybe a check every month or 2 months or 3 months. And they always have doubts that, you know what, maybe this money is less than what I deserve. Maybe something else is happening. Maybe it is not true, but that's the communication system as well. So again, I always say you need to have a system and people have to understand governance. And that's why in most of our courses for directors, we have family business coming to take these courses. We have usually the second and generations coming to say, you know what, let's understand what is the idea of the board of directors. Why do we have to have good governance? What are the challenges? How to overcome this? It's a knowledge. You have to gain this knowledge to understand. And it takes only 1 or 2 people to understand who can then influence the family and how it operates. Just 1 or 2 people to understand. It will make a difference for the family itself.
That's a great point. Well, we have an actual great question from the audience here. We have a great member of the audience who is actually the first registered family office in the history of the Gulf, which was started in 1886, I think. I hope I got that right. It's W.J. Towell. So it's over 150 years old. And Mr. Anis Sultan is actually here, who's on the board of that family office. Mr. Anis, are you there? Maybe you can tell us what.
Yes, thank you.
Maybe you can give us some insight. What governance models have worked for you to allow your business to go over 150 years? You mean you're beating everybody on this metric. So we're keen to hear. And you look like you're in an amazing spot representing the beauty of Oman. I'm sure you didn't miss a beat there. So.
Yes, I always do that to remind people to visit. Thank you, Shane. I think the 3 gentlemen with you here just, dropped every single issue on family business. A quick point, I recognize very strongly the name Al-Hazeem. I think our family did business together at some time. I also recognize all the issues Mr. Maher mentioned. And as a 150-year company, we've done all the mistakes. And we have also gradually built up the governance structure. And as we look at our biggest mistakes, it's always a loss of governance. So you cannot really underestimate the importance of that. As cliche as it sounds, it, you know, as Dr. Ashraf mentioned, it is very commonsensical. Now, some businesses like ours, when they started, there weren't any written rules or code, but a lot of them are implicit and understood. The difficulty comes when you actually form them and structure them. And we have, I think it took us more than 100 years to board. That doesn't mean the business wasn't working, but, you know, realizing the complexity required a board. And then another 20 years to have CEOs who are not from the family. That also improved performances. And recently, we also introduced independent directors to our business. That, again, all these things does not mean there's a full or a perfect formula. It's always an evolving structure.
Yeah.
Right. Well, thank you for that. It's so exciting to have you. And I don't know if any of the panel wants to respond to Mr. Anis. Otherwise, I'll ask a question from the Ashraf.
I think Mr. Anis actually mentioned something which is very important. It is really a journey. You know, it is always a very nice sentence to say that good governance is a journey, not a destination. You cannot have it all at once. It is very gradual because it's a change of culture, right? So when you have a culture of we as a family, we own and we manage our business, that's a culture. You cannot say, you know what, the family gets out of the business completely. You get a professional CEO. It doesn't happen like this. It happens, say, let's have an advisory board. Let's have some family friends who can be advisors to us in different things. And we have them as maybe think tank or advisors or advisory board that we have. And then you say, you know, let's have a board of directors, but we are as a family, we are still the majority of the board. All this is normal. You cannot say this is bad. Again, it has to be very gradual. And the change has to be in that way because in many cases, you see some resistance from the family to give up control of the company because for us, you know, I mean, the family is the business, basically. If you say, let's separate the two of them, it's very hard. So I believe in what Mr. Anis said, it's a journey. And by the way, some people think that, you know, to have good governance, let's go public and let's list the company. It doesn't go like this. I remember very well, one of the best companies in Brazil in corporate governance was 150 years old company called Algar. It's an unlisted company. It's totally family-owned company, but they had an excellent governance structure, better even than banks listed on the stock exchange. So you can have good governance, but again, it's a journey by which you do step by step. And the key thing is awareness and education and communication between the family members.
Okay. So I'm going to go to Nurtia Sultana in a second, but here's a question from Salvador Perez, which basically wants to know, I think this would be for Maher, Hassan, and Anis. Well, obviously, Dr. Ashraf, you would have a good insight, but they're interested to know with the family groups, how open are you to having external independent board members who are non-family members? And obviously you are open because Maher is one of them. So, but just interested to know what the appetite is and how open or closed is that group. Maybe
The group.
Oh, sorry.
Sure.
Maybe
sorry, sure. All right. The group is definitely open. However, we already have a good structure in place at this point of time. And as I mentioned earlier, we didn't want to make sure that we overwhelm them with everything. So we're taking the right steps. And everything we do, it's all about making sure we go step by step to make it happen. So they actually digest the information, learn through the process and move through it as well. So I think it has been a transformational journey over the last 3 years in terms of everything we've done in the business, whether it's setting up the governance, making sure every single vertical is actually aligned to that strategy we have. How do you become profitable independently as well? No commingling of funds, your expansion strategy, thinking forward as well. So I think so far the group is digesting that, but the definitely group in the future, when we further grow, will be open to that as well.
May I add something, if I may? On this, there are two components, right? One, inviting someone into your boardroom. The first element is the element of private information, secrecy. I'm afraid that's not relevant because if you have clients, if you have bankers, if you have dinners, you know, there are no secrets in small societies. But the most important part is accepting the feedback. And I think that's the cultural part. That's most important.
Thank you, thank you. So, Hassan, I don't know if you
I think, as I mentioned earlier, the problem is when either the shareholders think they can be themselves, they can represent themselves on the board, or they can add value, and they don't detach themselves from the board, or believe that this is an opportunity for their children, for example, to contribute. And you know, that's where the reluctance is, and the pushback on appointing non-members from the family. So we haven't reached there yet. And I think also people changed. In the past, business was easy. Yeah, brother Nasib, I think my father was you know, very close friends with his grandfather, Sultan. And in the past, business was done in a very easy, you know, sitting together with a friend, you decide to open a business in Oman, in Dubai, in Abu Dhabi, whatever. There was no complications with respect to legal or trust or confidence, and you know, everybody follows the patriarchs. Things now are getting more and more complicated. The, you know, governance issues are also complicated things further. I believe the generation. I mean, as you said earlier, second to third generation, it gets even more complex. And I believe, forget about family business at second and third generation. But right now, for example, when you look at where the millennials are and the Gen Z and whatever, they wouldn't find, let's say, our business as very attractive as a manufacturing business. They, you know, the new, you know, the new generations want easier things to be done easier, like more, you know, fancier stuff, whatever. So conventional businesses, even not only in our region, I think even in Europe and so on, manufacturing businesses are finding difficulties in finding and motivating the new generation, second or third, to be involved. So it's quite a complex situation, in my opinion. And that's what makes it even more and more important, as you said, to, you know, separate ownership and management. Because if, you know, there's no interest in managing the business, at least you know, you retain your ownership, but bring the right people to manage the business. That's, you know, yesterday I mentioned to Shane and Dr. Ashraf that there's a company in Austria, 150 years old company in Austria. Even the board has no one from the family. So that's, you know, 50 family members on the company. Only one member on the supervisory board that appoints the board is involved in the business. That's it, in appointing the board. However, none of the CEOs. It's a 1.5 billion euro company, so it's not a small company. So you know, lots of learning, I guess.
Let's let the audience get a little action here before we close. We have Mrs. Naricha Sultana, who has a question for the panel. Welcome, Mrs. Sultana. Please ask your question.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
You can. Okay. So thank you, Shane. I've just slightly modified my question because we have had some great information coming through. And a quick shout out to Mr. Anis. I did grow up in Oman. So yes, the country is quite beautiful. I encourage everyone to visit it. So my question for the esteemed panel is, what are some conflict management strategies when differences arise between a family member and a non-family member in your company? How does one balance generational differences, third culture influences, and ego, while at the same time pushing for professionalism and profit? Thank you.
It's a very loaded question, by the way. There isn't a magic formula. We need to realize that. And you cannot make a change overnight. So you have to go through all the learning and step by process. So if I recall, I mentioned, if you don't involve all the other members in terms of your communications and what's going on, trust me, that's exactly what you're going to achieve, a recipe for disaster. So one of the things we need to do is, how do we make sure we involve all of them? And that starts from the next generation. And I go back to something Hassan has mentioned, that, you know, that the technology is changing the shape of how business need to be there. And I was talking to Shane, one of the things that we did in the UAE, we all remember Ministry of Economy have launched their digital economy, what he called roadmap, in 2022. Now, to marry that with the family businesses, which are fabric of family businesses, how do we make sure we marry both together? And when we were sitting together and we were talking about it, I said, look, you cannot teach the patriarch of today that they actually become digital, because they've done a fantastic job in building brick and mortar businesses. For you to go digital, you have to go and address it to the next generation and speak to the next generation. So one of the things we did is we said, okay, why don't we launch a program that we need now teach the next generation on digital economy? So one of the things we thought of doing is venture studios, help them and develop the venture studios model. Now, we all heard about incubator programs, accelerator programs, and venture studios and venture capitalists. I had the benefit to work with venture studios very, very long ago, since 1993, when I joined my earlier organization, accidentally becoming a co-founder. So the venture studios model actually is 30% more successful than the normal businesses incubator and accelerator and the VCs model. So we launched the first cohort, and the first cohort actually got graduated last year in September. As we speak now, we're working to establish the second cohort, so where we invite other family businesses to come over, bring their next generation, also be part of the program. So you see what he's trying to do with this thing. My vision was, when I was telling to the Minister of Economy, Abdullah Muntog, I want to create a platform for investment platform where various family businesses can work together and work and co-invest. Today is very difficult to do. Yes, because everybody has a secret sauce, want to maintain and keep it to themselves, which is fine, acceptable. But when you create a platform of next generation and they're building businesses in a digital way, which has happened from the first cohort, as we speak, you had enough family businesses investing in these businesses. Now imagine this is increasing. So it is something I always try to avoid, what we use in the Western world, the Shark Tank thing. So I'm not trying to create a Shark Tank, but something similar to that, something really that which is local, which is understandable to us, to our values, to our culture. So so far we've been successful, and I think that will go on. So for you bring the next generation along with the patriarch which is there and create that harmony over a period of time, you think will happen. But the good things about our culture, always those who are junior today have a lot of respect and will not talk to their elders, even if they disagree. All right. And it's a good thing, but also a bad thing, because that becomes very pumped up into them. And over a period of time, when the transition time happens, the burst out happens. And this is where the conflict comes up. So unless you start this thing as early on, as I mentioned, or as well, you will not have then you'll have the communication. You need to make sure the communication gap is getting narrower and narrower through these meetings. So what we did, one of the things we did as well, we created a council for the next generation, just the next generation, talking about them, taking their challenges. What do they want the business to do? What they want the group to do? And we bring that into the constitution as well. And we discuss it with the board. So we now create harmony. So you have the business vertical, now you've got the family vertical, and then we marry both together.
Okay, can you, sorry, Hassan, you look like you want to say something, or we're coming close on the hour. No? And so
thank you so much, Mr. Maher.
Yeah, thank you, Mrs. Sultana. So I think we're closing this panel. We have the next panel coming up. Of course, I think you can approach these gentlemen on LinkedIn. And I think Mr. Maher is very active in the community as well. And Hassan's is a retail business, so you can actually maybe catch him in one of his showrooms. And of course, Dr. Ashraf can be found at the DIFC in the swanky gate, the square. His office is right up there. And last time I was visiting Dr. Ashraf, actually Sheikh Mohammed was also visiting. So it's actually Sheikh Mohammed's idea. I think, I don't know if that's true or not, good person to have involved with your business. That's for sure. So I just want to thank all the panelists very much. Mr. Anis is going to stay on for the next panel. And of course, I'm sure our panelists will be around in the audience to throw some pot shots at our next round of speakers. But let's give a big round of applause for Mr. Hassan Al-Hazeem, Mr. Maher Al-Kabi, and Dr. Ashraf Gamal.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Obviously, everyone's muted, so we can't hear them. But that was really, really insightful. And it's really also amazing to see some of these family businesses, how long they actually last. And I think when you pair it with the metrics from the corporate world, how amazingly they actually outperform some of the world's biggest corporations. Our next speaker We have a panel of three coming up, and we have one of the real big personalities in the business community in the Gulf and in Dubai, someone whose career I've been watching for years. And he's a co-founder and CEO of Gateway Partners, which is one of the most successful private equity funds out here with 4 billion assets under management. Of course, that information could be old because he's constantly raising new funds and new money and buying new companies. So it's hard to keep tabs on the gentleman. He moves so fast. He has multiple board roles, so he's more than qualified to lend some expertise and insight for us in this area. He's on the board of Dangote Cement, which is the largest cement company in Africa. He's on Gateway Real Estate Africa board. He's a board member with Vision Blue Resources. He's a board member of the Fund for Export Development in Africa. He's also a board member for Dangote Industries. And he holds a Bachelor of Science in Physics from Loyola College in Chennai and an MBA from the Indian Institute of Management in Bangalore. And please welcome the legend himself, Mr. V. Shankar.
Thank you, Shane, for that generous introduction. All untrue. I'm just an ordinary guy.
Far from it. And our next speaker hopefully will give us a little insight also to what's the amazing characters Royal Highness MBS is up to these days in Saudi Arabia. He's a partner with Mayaasim Al-Khaleej Real Estate Development Company. He's a former managing director where he worked 7 years with JP Morgan Chase Bank, and former that he was managing director at Rasmallah Investments, which a lot of people, if you're not familiar with Rasmallah, that was one of the guys that actually started was before Braj, actually one of the partners. Probably not get into the Abraj thing, but Rasmallah is probably one of the original private equity companies in the Gulf, doing some of the first transactions ever out here. He was a former CEO for iHalal Financial Services, former director at Carlyle Group, again, a private equity player we might have heard of. It's only the largest one in the world, I believe. He's a non-executive director with Taib Bank. In Bahrain, he's a vice chairman there, as well as with Tatweer, which is a Kuwait real estate developer. He was previously the chairman of the board for MetLife Insurance, and previously chairman for AIG. He was a previous chairman for A&B, a joint venture between MetLife and AIG, and the Arab National Bank in Saudi Arabia. He has a master's degree in chemical engineering from University of Texas at Austin, and an MBA from Harvard Business School. We may have heard of that university before. So really strong background. And he's currently the chairman of the board of directors of UBS for Saudi Arabia. Please welcome Mr. Ramzi Kanan.
Thank you, Shane. Thank you for the introduction. Yes, when you get to be as old as we are, you get to have your time around the table, so to speak. But yes, the Gulf has been the main anchor where I have worked most of my life, if not all of my life, and happy to be a participant today.
And last but not least, we have Mr. Anis Sultan, who is on the board of WJ Towell and has been around he's really a member of the business community of the Gulf, and he has been involved in, I think they have, I can't keep count of all the businesses of WJ Towell, but he's worked in everything from automotive engineering all the way to real estate. And I think some of the real estate projects that they oversee in Oman is, I think, thousands and thousands and thousands of villas. So really kind of a pioneer in some of the urban development and higher end living that's been put in place in Oman. And I think he has one more chair spot, which I missed there, Anis. But please welcome Mr. Anis Sultan, board member with WJ Towell. I missed one of your chair spots, didn't I, Mr. Anis?
No, I think that was a charity.
With the charity, of course. And yeah, being socially responsible and triple bottom line, which is also nice. So with no further ado, I think we have a really bang up panel here, and a great group with a huge amount of experience. Let me start off with Shankar. I think Shankar, I don't know if you just got off a plane or not, but I think that I saw a video you were just in South Africa and back here. Most people dream of being in private equity. Fewer people dream of even owning a private equity company. You've done both. Can you tell us about how you started Gateway Partners? I think everybody was salivating if they could follow in your footsteps, or even half as successful as you've been in starting it. Maybe you can give us a little insight about how Gateway Partners got started.
I'll just put it down to one word. It's called luck. I'm just an ordinary guy who's had an extraordinary run. Well, I was a banker for a long time with 2 international banks. Always was a bit entrepreneurial, quite a bit, and wanted to get out and do my own stuff. So about 9 years ago, decided to leave banking and start my own private equity gig. Started it with 3 people that I had worked with for a long time, and we are still here together. We all enjoy working with each other. We complement each other. Our thesis was very simple, Shane. The emerging markets, particularly the ones that we know well, Southeast Asia, South Asia, Middle East, and Africa, have a young growing population that's urbanizing, a growing middle class that's consuming, that require basic goods and basic services, the core goods and core services. So our hypothesis is these companies need capital, they need growth, and so there's going to be a demand for capital. On the supply side, it's kind of constrained in some of these markets, particularly places like Africa. So the ability for us to intermediate capital flows into those markets is going to be beneficial in terms of not just for us, but also in terms of creation of jobs, industry innovation, and helping those economies grow. We don't have a secret sauce, but if there was one, it'll be the fact that people, not just me, but the members of my team, we have all worked together in multiple geographies around the world. We have seen how things work and how things don't work. What applies in market A may not necessarily work well in market B. So the secret sauce of Gateway Partners, my firm, is probably investing into, say, India and helping the company expand into Middle East and Africa, or vice versa. So that's why people take our money, and it's been a great run.
Great, and I didn't mention one of your job titles, which was CEO of Standard Chartered Bank Americas and a board member with Standard Chartered Bank. Just for people to maybe understand how successful it's been, even with a huge slew of roles that you've had. What I read in an article that you have a bat crazy investment strategy. I mean, you can tell me what that is.
I think I just came up with it at the spur of the moment when I was interviewed by somebody about 6 or 7 years ago. It's cute, but don't take it at face value, because what the bat there refers to Bitcoin, Argentina, and Tesla. And I think when I spoke about it 6 or 7 years ago, there was a huge amount of fraud. I still, it was a time when there was a lot of cheap money. There was a lot of irrational exuberance in the market. And there was zero collective memory of how things can go wrong. And I think I was proven right on the fact, look, bottom line is at that point of time, Argentina did a 100-year bond. This is a country which defaults every 10 years in history. So what are people thinking about when they buy a 100-year bond for, let's say, Argentina? It has defaulted since. Tesla at that point of time was valued 10 times more than GM, which produced 20 times more cars than they did, and probably produced 50 times more profitable than them. And even today, if you just look at, I'm a big fan of Elon Musk. I'm a big fan of Tesla. But if you just look at Tesla's valuation today, it's close to $600 billion. Toyota Motors, the largest automobile company in the world in terms of number of cars sold, is at 60% of that, close to about 360 billion. They trade at a 10 times PE. Tesla trades at a 60 times PE. Toyota trades at 1 time sales. Tesla trades at 6 times sales. So there's a lot of this irrational exuberance. So don't take, I'm not bashing Tesla or Bitcoin or Argentina. All I'm saying is watch out. There's a lot of irrational exuberance thanks to the cheap money, the helicopter money was around. We need to just be careful about that when we're investing.
Sure. And Mr. Ramzi, you have a CV that almost collects Fortune 100 companies, JP Morgan, Carlyle Group, MetLife, AIG. And now as the chairman of UBS, you must have a perspective, I guess your personal perspective, or I don't know which one you prefer to share, on where this market is going. I know that I believe Shankar had said in an interview earlier that he feels more volatility is coming. Maybe what's your, as a chairman of a bank, I'm sure you have to have a clear perspective on where the economy is going. How do you see your job in that area of kind of keeping the ship steered of the icebergs and the rocks and everything else that's out there? Maybe you could give us a little insight.
Sure. First of all, if I may, I'd like to start with a disclaimer. Everything I say here is based on my personal opinion. As you can imagine, whether it's UBS or all the other big banks, they're very calculating in terms of their opinions, and usually none of their opinions sort of matters in terms of like anybody who makes any decisions in terms of those opinions. So anything I say here, just for the record, is based on my own personal opinion. And to pick up on a point which we had just mentioned regarding whether it's the Bitcoins of the world, the very high-end technology companies of the world, I cannot say I know much about Argentina other than the fact that at the beginning of the last century, it was one of the largest economies in the world. Back when the agrarian agricultural economy was the main economy in the world. Today, clearly Argentina has fell behind significantly as agriculture becomes more of a commodity and less of a competitive or comparative advantage. Now, in terms of, I think today what everybody is watching, and you can see this in terms of the stock market and how it's behaving, I think the number one matter on everybody's minds is interest rates. So there is a rumor that interest rates will go up, markets go down, and vice versa. And needless to say, that's because a lot of cheap money was brought to the system in terms of whether it's COVID or pre-COVID, when interest rates were extremely very low. And that has resulted in many balance sheets being leveraged. And today we are coming to a point in time when a lot of this leverage is maturing over the next, call it 12 to 24 months. And many are observing how will a lot of corporations, especially we hear a lot these days about commercial real estate, how will all these corporations and people holding commercial real estate adjust to the maturities and having to take on much more expensive debt at much lower valuations in terms of the assets that they are holding. So assuming we go through this year without too many issues, I think probably the Fed will keep an eye on all of the above. You're hearing in the United States specifically, Janet Yellen voicing some concern, but cautious concern regarding these maturities and being able to help, especially the regional banks, many of which have exposure to these assets, in terms of making sure nothing really falls apart. Of course, the big banks in the United States, the JP Morgans of the world, because of how diversified they are, their reliance on a different source of capital in terms of deposits and how big their balance sheets are, probably are a lot more immune. So I would say the number one matter today on people's minds is definitely interest rates and how we will go through this. Mind you, some of the issues relating to Bitcoin and why there is, it goes up and down. And again, this is a personal opinion, but many people are rethinking the whole concept of what money is. And in the United States, the dollar continues to be extremely a very strong currency, and it will probably continue to be a very strong currency for the foreseeable future. That said, the ability of the government there to continue to print money when the need arises, coupled with a global disconnect potentially over a long period of time in terms of the dollarization of the global economy, whether what you see with what's happening with China or Russia or elsewhere. In the long term, that might also have an impact on how we make investment decisions, part of which is people thinking that, ironically, things like Bitcoin might be a better hold of value. But again, you could say the same thing about gold. Gold is probably the first virtual currency that was, I mean, gold has no economic, you cannot eat gold, you cannot make anything significant from gold of extremely large quantities, but it is a holder of value because of its scarcity. And many people, I think, believe that Bitcoins, again, due to the perceived scarcity, because it is at a dwindling production rate. If anybody is familiar with how Bitcoin was initially created, the algorithm that creates it every year creates half of the amount, and then the subsequent years half the amount, until basically it goes down to nothing. So there's this perception of scarcity and people kind of losing some faith in traditional currencies, and possibly that's why Bitcoin is gaining momentum. Again, this is a personal view, but I don't see why else would it be holding so much value and continuing to go up. You know, it went down to about 16,000, 14,000 during COVID, and post-COVID, it's back to 50,000 today. It had reached 60,000, and nobody knows. So that's my view on Bitcoins per se. On the technology companies, you know, I'll admit in 1999, Amazon was at $14 a share, and Amazon was selling books online. And I just couldn't comprehend why would a company that is selling books online be valued at that much back then. But I think as you look more at these companies and the entrepreneurs behind them, whether it's the Teslas with Elon Musk, whether it's Amazon with Jeff Bezos, you realize that they have people behind them that are extremely smart, extremely innovative, extremely adaptive, and with a lot of energy. So to the extent that you continue to have these very innovative people, you know, Apple was Steve Jobs at one point, and we know how Apple went up and down with and without Steve Jobs. I think people look at how these people can continue to innovate and take advantage of the next trend that's coming up, and what they're betting on in terms of those stock prices. And they have delivered, right? I mean, Amazon delivered. God knows, you know, if you had bet against Amazon, you would have lost a lot of money, or even not participated, you would have lost a lot of money. So many people, I think, and many investors are looking at these companies as the generators of the next wave of where we are going. Today, we are seeing a lot of buzz in terms of AI, artificial intelligence, which is not a very complex kind of technology, but the availability of trillions of bytes of data today, along with extremely powerful computing power, has allowed us to create these engines that are able to understand and mimic. Whether they will be able to extrapolate as opposed to interpolate going forward will be interesting to see. But one cannot ignore energy if you technology. If you ignore technology, and if you have ignored it for the past 4 or 5 years, you've lost a lot on the upside in the markets. So these are some personal opinions. Happy to take more thoughts and counter opinions.
Thank you, Ramzi. So Shankar, I see that you've gone on the opposite: cement, water, coffee, healthcare, and I think maybe you know, where you're really focusing on the necessities, or really what people 100% need. And I don't know if maybe even WJ Towell as well has, you know, FMCG, foods, staples. You really built your businesses on the staples, the fundamentals of consumer needs. Maybe Shankar, you can give us some insight into that.
Shane, you're right. I mean, we focus a lot on consumption-driven themes, but that includes technology, by the way. because that's also become a basic need. People need food, shelter, clothing, education, healthcare, water, but they also need broadband, they also need data, and they need to apply technology in whatever you do. So the way I would answer it is, yes, I'm a big believer that at the end of the day, in these markets we operate in, we need to invest in companies that produce core goods and core services, but that includes, in Philippines, we own the digital land registry business. So in Philippines, if you want to buy land, sell land, register a mortgage, check a title, you got to use the services of our company. We've just invested into one of the first digital banks in Philippines. It's a pure digital bank. 6 digital bank licenses were given 2 years ago. This bank has had tremendous traction. It almost has 1 million customers today from a standing start, and it's going to be a great story. We also happen to own a stake in the largest terrestrial optic fiber and data center network across Africa. To me, that's technology, but on the other hand, it's also a basic consumption, basic need. So I don't think it's necessarily contradictory. And even an old-time company like at Dangote Cement, right? We cannot be successful in the cement business unless we apply technology. Technology to the production of cement, more and more artificial intelligence in terms of calibration of the kiln, or even the feedstock mix. Use of more alternative fuels to reduce your carbon footprint. Even monitoring your trucks, your drivers. I mean, use of artificial intelligence, not just artificial intelligence, but data and a lot of optical tools, even in terms of fuel consumption. So I think technology is ubiquitous. I think we shouldn't view things as there's a technology world and then there's a non-technology world. I think technology is inextricably intertwined with everything you do today, including the meeting we're having today. That would not have been possible 20 years ago.
Right, and Shankar, you're on these boards, but you're also you're not a passive person. You're very much a business driver. When you're on a board, the management team will feel your presence. And what's your approach? I kind of feel you're a bit more hands-on than the usual. Even in some instances, generally where you're a minority stakeholder, you are a lot more hands-on than even some of the board members I've seen who are majority holders. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about what your approach as a board member is to driving revenue and net profit growth results are. And then maybe Anis, you can provide your insight as someone who's been doing that for 150 years as well.
Look, you're absolutely right, Shane. We are an active investor. Even if you are a minority investor, we are active. We take board seats. We have significant rights. So we are active. Now, it's usually that in our case, it doesn't lead to friction because people who take our money welcome our money and welcome our involvement. We actually like to work with entrepreneurs who believe that we are more than just capital, that we are a force multiplier, we are a catalyst. We help them achieve their aspirations. So when we sit on the board, clearly an important part of the work is to make sure that the strategy is aligned, the company is well equipped to seize the opportunity strategically, and perhaps the value we bring to the table is, let's say we've invested in a company in India, we have invested in a similar company, or we have seen similar companies in Indonesia or Thailand or Middle East, which have, so what is it we can borrow and learn from these companies? So strategy is an important part. But to me, I'm a big believer that in success, strategy is 10%. Execution is 90%, if not more. And to get execution right, we need the right management team. And that's not just the board, it's also the executive management. And I think the role of the board is to make sure that the management team is fit for purpose. We have a team that can execute on the strategy and can also, and in today's world, you need to be fairly nimble and agile. Strategy is not cast in stone. You got to be nimble and agile, and that's where the Amazons of the world have scored big. So having a management team that can think on its feet, can operate at 30,000 feet, but also can operate on ground level is very, very important. So we play a very active part in the people side of it, making sure the management is appropriately also incentivized to do it, but then also having the mechanisms in place that you measure the KPIs, because people ultimately perform based on how they are measured and incentivized. So I think that's a critical part. And then, as a private equity fund, obviously we are not perpetual capital. So you can take the approach that we run it for the short run. Absolutely not, because actually the way you add value to the company is not just, obviously you need to be smart in the short run and have capital discipline, but it's also being very mindful of building value for the future. Because at the time you sell, it may be a strategic who comes to buy it or another financial investor, but they are looking at the long-term sustainability of the company. So that's important. And for us also, you can't have loose rivets. And that's an area I think the board needs to get very actively involved, and investors need to get involved, that you're very good at compliance, risk management, ESG, and all the other stuff. So to me, strategy, execution, even more important, having the right management team in place, measuring them, incentivizing them, monitoring performance, and having no loose rivets, and managing both for the short run and the long run.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
And
so
sorry,
from,
Anis, how do you feel
thank-
about that's an interesting piece, that the 10% strategy, 90% execution. Personally, for me, as I interview, a lot of the top performers around the region, I've actually found that in a higher, when you see a CEO or a board member who's generating millions and millions of dollars, they're generally tactically very sound. And they very rarely will highlight this amazing strategy that they have. They'll start telling you about how they were able to generate profits during COVID, during the shutdown, or how they were able to overcome the Gulf War, or how they were overcome different challenges. But sorry, Anis, go ahead. I mean, we're keen to hear your thoughts on this point.
But we did not beat COVID, so that didn't work. What I see increasingly see and learn that in board meetings, we talk about what happened, reports, all that stuff, whereas we missed out the strategy. So I would push more than 10% for that. I think it's very important that that is tested regularly, validated, and continued. In terms of the other question you raised on the lines between executive versus board levels, I think one thing that we started to do better now is to become to enable more success from executives. And as organizations become bigger and older, they tend to be a bit slow and accept the 5% or 10% growth. So we allow areas of entrepreneurship. Now, that doesn't mean, unwanted risk, but just allows for some new opportunities. For example, 20 years ago, we were purely trading, then we went into engineering, and that's a more a value-added business. In terms of technology, we invested in technology, again, allowing for these growths in a controlled manner.
Mr. Ramzi, I think I can't believe the 30 minutes is almost blown by us. I guess that's what happens when you have the heavyweights like you three here. Mr. Ramzi, do you have any closing remarks or thoughts on what these gentlemen have said?
No, I think for the most part, we are all in agreement, even the panel prior to this one, and the matter of strategy and execution and what have you. From my personal experience in terms of the boards, setting the strategy, the KPI, and monitoring success parameters, and frankly, leaving it to management to execute. When I was at Aramco, I had this motto that said, trust them and empower them or fire them. So don't antagonize them. When you have good management working for the board or for the company, You just need to give them the rein to operate and execute, or else just replace them. So and the issue with family businesses is, how can you fire your brother, right? So the easiest thing to do is not to appoint him to a significant managerial position, just in case. But that's a thought.
So I just want to thank the panel. I guess with that, we'll move on to our next one. So Mr. Ramzi, Mr. Shankar, Mr. Anis, what an amazing panel. Three, total globally, different countries, different exposures, all at a very high level. I'm really thankful for you guys joining our panel today. And really, I could have spent all afternoon talking to you guys, and obviously for my own investment benefit as well. I think I would have gotten good money out of it. But thanks again for joining, and we really look forward to what you guys are doing next in the landscape. Let's give these guys a big round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Pleasure.
guys. So coming up next now, it was a really amazing panel and amazing guys, and I think you'll hear more of from those guys in the news, I'm sure, with some of the stuff that they're up to. But now we have one of my favorite stories, the story of Aminvest, which was one of the smallest publicly listed investment companies on the MSN. And today it is the largest privately held publicly listed investment company on the MSN. We have a gentleman who is at the helm of this particular ship. And I'd like to introduce Mr. Sanjay Quatra, who has 26 years of solid experience in providing financial, strategic growth and operating leadership. He's well connected globally and possesses a deep sector knowledge of banking, leasing, and insurance. He currently is the Deputy Group Chief Executive Officer of Aminvest Group and is responsible for managing Aminvest Group investments. Earlier, he was a partner in EY Mena. He has extensive experience in matters relating to investment, leadership, IPOs, mergers and acquisitions, restructuring, divestment, performance improvement, valuation, and cross-border fundraising transactions. All the sexy stuff that we like to get our hands on. Sanjay has served as an advisor to several regulatory committees in Oman. He's an active presenter in business forums and contributes articles to business magazines. He's also a board member of several companies in the GCC. He holds a Bachelor of Commerce and is a member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. Please welcome Mr. Sanjay Quatra. Welcome, Sanjay.
Thank you very much, Shane. Thank you really for having me on this event today. It seems to be a very successful event going on. I logged in some time back, and I was listening to the earlier panelist, and I think the quality of the discussion, it's very amazing, and I think it's great to connect with everybody whoever is on this call today.
Yo, thank you, Sanjay, and of course. I have a soft spot in my heart for Aminvest and what they've done, but actually there's a huge heritage there with your company. There's a rooted history. Can you tell us a little bit about how Aminvest started, where its roots are, and where you're going now?
Sure, Shane. I think you attended our celebration last year. You remember we celebrated our 4 decades of success, I'll say. We celebrated our 40th anniversary last year. And the event was not only celebrated, 40 years of Aminvest, but we also recognized, the collective effort of the board and the management team that have contributed to the group success. It started in 1983. The first chapter of Aminvest story began in 1983 when His Excellency Mohammad Zubair and his visionary friends laid down the foundation for Aminvest. Their values and the vision have been the guiding principle for the group since now as well, and we continue to drive its success, as we progress. One of the first investment which was made by Aminvest that time, around 40 years back, was formation of a bank in Oman, which is known as Oman Arab Bank, and we are proudly associated with the bank from its inception. And I think one of the values of Aminvest is collaboration and working along with the strong partners. So again, we formed the bank with Arab Bank Jordan, and today also, they are our partners on this particular venture. The company has been led by, I'll say, a progressive board and a capable management team, dedicated to enhancing value for all the shareholders, and which would positively impact the communities. Today, I can say, Shane, like after 40, today, now this is the 41st year now. We are proud to say that we are one of the largest listed investment companies in the region and has been consistently profitable since its formation. And we have a track record of paying dividend to our shareholders, an uninterrupted dividend distribution to all our esteemed shareholders. Now we own a high quality asset portfolio in diversified sector, producing healthy cash flow. So I think just to give you a snapshot of where we started.
But I think the growth hasn't just been a kind of a straight line. There was years where there was more modest growth, and then I think there were some years where we saw a rocket-fueled ascent. Can you tell us a little bit about what caused that sudden sea change? Because it seemed around 2015, 2014, where the drumbeat started to change. I think maybe that's also when you started working with the Phillips Group, but that's neither here nor there from an executive search perspective. But let's put that on the side. Outside of the obvious there, for 2015, what started happening there?
So I think you really monetize your forums, Shane. Definitely. I think just to put in context, Shane, since inception, Ominvest have always remained a solid and a profitable company. Yes, the size was different. You're right, the profitability and I'll say the remarkable steady growth achieved by the company since 2015 is we are quite satisfied and quite pleased with that. As it happens in any company, the key factors for any success story or the growth are people, vision, governance, diversification strategy, and seamless execution. Ominvest has a progressive board and is led by our chairman, Mr. Al-Khaleej. He also joined Ominvest board almost at the same time, and we talked about around 2015, and he was elected as the chairman. And then he hired a very capable leader, our group CEO, Mr. Abdulaziz Al-Balushi, and then Abdulaziz has built a strong management team surrounding that. Now, these years have not only been full of challenges, but they also provided us tremendous opportunity to grow by closely monitoring upcoming trends, I'll say advanced planning, adapting swiftly to the changes and implementing sound business practices. Ominvest has made a significant progress. You referred to 2015. If I go back 2015, I'll say 90% of our assets and 90% of our revenue and profitability used to come from one investment which we made since formation of Oman Arab Bank. Since then, 2015, we have been on a very prudent diversification strategy. And from 90% dependency on one investment, today we can say our revenue contribution or profit contribution or asset contribution from Oman Arab Bank is less than 15%. So there has been a quite growth and quite a diversification which we have achieved as a group during this period. 2015 to 2020, the diversification was on moving away from dependency on one particular investment, and I think we did it pretty well. 2020 onwards, the diversification strategy has been focusing on geographies now, and today almost 42% of our assets are outside Oman. Now, how did we do this? Achieve this? There have been several successful inorganic transactions. The first one happened, which we'll say is a milestone for us in 2015, was a merger of Ominvest with a almost equal size another investment holding company. It used to be called as Onyx Holding. And then it followed by several other transactions, where we had mergers in our, the banks, in our insurance companies in our portfolio, as well as leasing company. And we had a couple of IPOs for our portfolio companies as well. Since 2020, when we started our diversification strategy geographically, I can say we have also been actively optimizing our investment portfolio. During this period, we would have made profitable exits of almost around 600 million riyal plus, and we reinvested this funds and other funds of around $1 billion. So there has been quite a big churn in our portfolio over the last 3 to 4 years, and we continue to do this. Our core competency is basically to invest prudently in a well-diversified, balanced portfolio and innovation-led creation. And I think that's how we do it. Collaboration, create a win-win transaction for everybody. Everybody should get a benefit of whatever we are doing. We are a small team. We have almost around less than 50 people at Ominvest, and we manage a investment portfolio of almost around 3.4 billion, which is generating good returns for us.
Is that dollars? Sorry, dollars or reals?
That's dollars.
US dollars. Okay. 3.4 billion, you said.
We now have our office.
Your voice is fading in and out there for some reason. I don't know why. That's odd. That was fine yeah, there we go.
Can you hear me well now? I say, now we have offices in Singapore. We have got an office in DIFC, and our private equity and the investment banking teams are now building up assets under management, focusing on generating fee income and creating additional sources of revenue, as well as creating valuable platform. Currently, Ominvest has assets under management, through our Singapore and DIFC office, and the investment banking activities we have in Oman of around close to $3 billion, which is, again, we are proud of, because this is the trust placed in our platform by third-party investors. So I think these are few of the things which really helped us: valuation discipline, following prudent practices, and then basically managing the optimal capital structure. 2022, 2023 have been a good year for us. 2022 was the year we had our highest profit, and basically the return on equity for that particular year was around 22%. Now, 2023, we are closing down our accounts, and there's still not been, audits have not been closed, so I can't talk about it, but it's been a good year for us as well. So I think that's few things, Shane, I just wanted to highlight.
Right. Well, one of the exciting moments, that you've really been on an acquisition spree, and we saw you kind of lean into the insurance market. I think you have your crosshairs set at the podium in terms of leading the front rank out here in the Gulf. And we saw you for those of you who don't know, Sanjay orchestrated as well with the board and the rest of the leadership team, orchestrated the acquisition of RSA Insurance Middle East, one of the big moves that shook the industry, probably made some of your competitors a bit nervous. And for those of you in your corner, got us all cheering and excited as we watched you kind of stride forward, ever upwards. And so can you tell us, I mean, this is a transaction that was exciting. RSA is a bit of an international brand, and it's always nice to see those local Middle Eastern brands start to grow out globally as the center of gravity shifts from the west to the east. And now we see you grabbing this very sexy insurance brand. Can you tell us a little bit about that transaction? How did you do it, and what was kind of the strategy behind the whole move?
Sure, Shane. I think our entry to insurance sector, it started with the merger which we had in 2015 with Onik Holding. At the time of the merger, we had a lot of investments coming up from Onik Holding, and one of them was National Life. National Life was an insurance company in Oman. When we looked at National Life during that time, it's basically the company had a great potential and had a very strong management team, but it really lacked the scale. After a couple of rounds with the management team, and once we were comfortable, what we did is basically we recapitalized the company by injecting new capital and providing strategic direction. And I think with the management team in place and their capabilities, National Life quickly became a market leader in Oman, and they started their operations in UAE as well. There was a successful IPO of National Life in 2017, 2018, and then we came to a stage where we were almost 50% market share. And then you cannot grow further, in one particular market. And then our focus was on UAE. When we were doing all this transaction came, which was Royalson Alliance. They were exiting the region, and they were looking for partners to exit. Royalson Alliance Middle East, the structure was they had a head office in Bahrain, 50% owned by the operators, Royalson Alliance and Intact, and the remaining 50% of the company was owned by 4 very reputed Saudi groups and family. The way we did the structure, the transaction is we settled RSA/Intact in cash, but the remaining 4 Saudi shareholders, we worked along with them, we collaborated with them, and we shared the same vision of really building a good insurance platform for the region. We did an exchange of the share swap with them. So they became a shareholder with us at the National Life, and basically we took over the 100% of Royalson Alliance. And there were a lot of synergies between Royalson Alliance Middle East operations and National Life, because National Life was focusing on health business, and RSA Middle East was doing everything else other than health. And they were operating in different geographies, like we were in Oman and UAE. They were in UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Bahrain. So it provided us a regional footprint as well. So I think that's how we did that particular transaction. We are very excited about that particular transaction. Now it's one of the top 10 insurer in the country. During 2023, we have rebranded the whole operations. It's no longer called either National Life or it is called as RSA Middle East Offices. It's basically it's a fresh identity, Leva, where we have a very strong growth plan on this. So basically making a leading multi-line insurer in the region. So I think in summary that's what it is. Shane.
So who are you going to acquire next now? Is there anyone else in the crosshairs, or you're not allowed to say?
It depends on the opportunities, Shane.
Okay, so now we know anyone out there wants to sell an insurance company, you can give Sanjay a call. Sanjay, what were some of the big other transactions you did in 2023?
I think briefly, we are bullish on insurance. So we did one more transaction in insurance because RSA was in 2022. In 2023, we increased our stake in a Nasdaq listed reinsurance company. It's called IGI. It's an A-listed, it's basically A-rated company, and their operations are outside the region. We are now the second largest shareholder in that particular entity. We own now close to in excess of 20% in that. The company operates in, I think, best-in-class operating matrices and basically delivering a return on equity of above 25%. So we are very pleased with the company's performance. And we are also very pleased with the company's performance and maybe the timing and the attractive valuation at which we made the entry in this company. The share price has gone up almost by 60%. I think that was one good transaction. The second one is we increased our shareholding in Bank Muscat, which is the largest bank in Sultanate of Oman. It has got the market share. And from there, now we are again at Bank Muscat. We are the second largest shareholder. We currently own now 15% in that. Another major transaction or an important transaction, I'll say, is we had certain perpetual bonds which we issued in 5 years back, and we were quite pleased to basically redeem those perpetual bonds on its first call date. These were earlier listed on the Muscat Stock Exchange, and this decision is also it demonstrates a direct result of the company's strong financial performance and the liquidity position. Apart from that, we also did few private equity deals and an acquisition in a fintech, fast-growing technology company in the region. I think these are some of the ones which we did.
So now I think we've established that you're a moneymaker, 60% increase. All of your numbers are double digits, triple digits. But what do you feel that the board, and I think you obviously have a fantastic chairman, Mr. Khaled Al-Zubair, and you have a lot of very highly successful board members. Well, what is it that the board is doing differently to drive this success Some of the things that I see in companies is, when you see a company that's underperforming, you generally have bad corporate governance, you generally have bad investment committee, you have a poor executive committee. And and on the other hand, you will see board members where the asset is performing, they're a bit more hands-on. What is it that your board is doing differently, would you say? What's your perspective on the role the board has played in this success story?
The board has played a central role in definitely the success of this organization. And then we are a growing company. We are still doing a lot more. We have a lot more to achieve. But you're right, Shane. The board is a very special institution in every company. It meets few times in a year for a few hours. But the decisions made at the board, basically they define the organization destiny for the coming years. Our board is a visionary and a diverse board. I think we are very pleased to have a solid board, with us. It's led by our chairman, Al-Khaleej. The board of directors guide and support the management team to achieve sustainable performance. And basically, I think the most important thing, as you mentioned, is the governance. Adhering to the highest level of professional and ethical standards. The board strongly believes in the pivotal role of businesses in helping build sustainable societies and has been adopting the best ESG practices. We have I'll say a multidisciplinary board. We are also proud to have 2 women directors on our board, and we also have the board members from different nationalities. So they all bring a new and a fresh perspective to all our discussions and the decisions. I'll say one of the key strengths for Ominvest currently is the full alignment between the board and the management team, and basically we shared a common vision. I think that becomes extremely critical for us. Differing views, respectful disagreements, and basically challenging the status quo are very much encouraged at our boardroom and in a very positive manner. And chairman, the board members, they all ensure that there is an equal opportunity for each and every member to express their views, and the decisions are made collectively. The board is very much focused on the strategic matters, not on operational matters, with a special emphasis on governance. So I think just to answer your question, the board has played a very, very important role in the success of Ominvest. And also, I think we are quite pleased to note I think our board also gets engaged in continuous training. So there are retreats. They go out for a couple of days, every alternate year. There have been strategy meetings, so they devote sufficient time and with the right mindset. So I think that's is a very, very important role played by the board in basically helping us achieve as management team what we have achieved.
Okay, we're in the tail end here. That went really quickly, that 30 minutes. Maybe we can ask the audience to give you a bit of a tough time here. Let's see if they have any questions. Sarah Asal, are you there? I'm not sure. You have your camera and your video off. I don't know if you can turn it on or if she is.
Are you able to hear me now? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. We can't see you though. I don't know if you want to turn your camera on.
I can't actually. I just had an operation, so it's kind of affecting me. But quick question: what is their appetite in terms of investment, and which kind of financial tools do they usually use to facilitate that?
Thanks, Sarah, for this question, and I hope you get well soon. With whatever stage of the things you are in. For us, the focus is financial services, but we have a diversified portfolio and we have done an asset allocation. The strategic investments remain the financial services. That could be banking, insurance, leasing. Technology is the other one which we are looking at. We have different limits for the private equity, and the private equity we operate in diverse sectors, and then we are quite open to investment opportunities in the region, in Southeast Asia as well. And I think the key matrices for us are always one is Can we collaborate? Are we dealing with the right partners? I think before we go into the financial matrices, and then the financial matrices also plays a very important role. The entry point for us, whether we will have an exit, whenever we wanted to have an exit from that transaction, and how can we collaborate with our partners?
Great. I think we'll let Mrs. Sultana get her the last word in here. I think she had good. I think we have. Are you unmuted and everything? There we go. Please go ahead. Oh,
sorry, I can't hear you. I think you're on mute.
We lost you. We assumed you would come through for us as you did last time, but it looks like we might have to go. Nope, not happening.
No.
I think she was asking where should she buy real estate in Oman. I don't know if that's up your alley, but with a smile, it looks like Sanjay may have some of his own personal real estate portfolio in Oman.
As Ominvest, we are developing. We also have an interest in real estate, but we don't develop very large real estate projects. These are niche, iconic projects which we develop. Right now, we are working on a mixed-use development project. It's in the center of the city, very close to the airport, along with the golf course. So we can connect later on, maybe something you may find of interest.
Okay, we'll get that through to you. Well, Sanjay, I know you're a very busy man, buying companies in different countries and so on, and really one of the companies that's really the pride of Oman itself. And it's I know yourself also as one of the highest integrity professionals I've ever worked with. It's a real pleasure and honor to have you on our panel. I just want to, me and the audience just want to give you a round of applause and thank you for your time today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Shane, and thank you everyone for listening. It's really my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So that was Sanjay Quatra and the amazing Ominvest story. I kind of held back on telling you some of the financial results there. But if you go and look at the financial statements, you'll see really just what a phenomenal story. Actually, if you said the actual numbers, you might not even believe them. They're that strong. And I want to just close on thanking our partner, Hawkamah, Dr. Ashraf. I don't know if he's still on the call, but he's also available if any of the companies want to upskill their boards in the areas of corporate governance, setting your authority matrix, board assessments. This is all in the realm of Hawkamah, and they can really provide you immediate impact in that area. And he is really the best in class, as you saw. As well as some of the individuals on the call, maybe you want to become a board member, or you're a board member, you want to get more roles. This is where getting yourself as becoming a certified board member can really help you put rubber to the road and add that extra qualification and insight you need when dealing with these high rolling board members like we had Shankar, Mr. Anis, and Mr. Ramzi. You will be a good arsenal to equip yourself with that Hawkamah can add to your skill set. So if you are interested in any of that, please do send me an email at shane@tpgleadership.com, or you can also call me directly on my mobile. I think also people will be available. I'm just trying to get back into the chat room. For some reason, I can't find. Oh, there it is. Okay, I'll just put my email and mobile there if anybody needs to get in touch. We're also going to release the recording of this session for you. And again, want to thank everyone. I was really kind of overwhelmed when we opened and we had 300 people join at once. I hadn't seen that before, wasn't ready for it. So it actually took 6 or 7 minutes for everybody to get in the room. It was so big. We're going to be doing this quarterly. And we have some really good speakers lined up. I almost had Fadi Gandour from Aramex on this one. He said perhaps a chance he'll be on the next one. So if Fadi Gandour comes on, that would be a great, but that's kind of the level. You see the level of speakers we're going to have. And the next one is going to be May 30th, which is the last Thursday in May. And so we're going to do this every quarter. And for those of you who want to stay in touch, just send us emails. We'll keep you on the mailing list. For those of you who don't, then just let us know, and we'll be happy to take you off. Thanks again to our speakers, and thanks again to the audience. You guys were awesome, and it's always nice looking out in the crowd and seeing some familiar faces. So any other questions or anything, you can send it to me, and we'll be shutting down the meeting just almost on time. And thanks again. And if anyone wants to know what this line is, that's our logo of our company. So as part of the corporate branding, needs to be there. Thank you so much. And we'll talk to you all soon. Bye for now. Ma salama.